The sixth edition of the India Energy Congress was held in New Delhi on 28 and 29 January 2015. Organized by the World Energy Council India, the theme for the Congress was Securing India's Energy Future, Integration and Action, which is crucial for an economy that is poised for significant growth.
Indian Energy Congress is part of the World Energy Conference. The World Energy Congress, we have the Indian chapter which does this every year. Basically, it is to bring synergy between the world companies and Indian companies, the thought process. It initiates interaction and thought process. So 2 days people sit with an open mind to discuss technology, to discuss processes, to discuss methods, to discuss the problems. So that probably I think is the biggest thing that this Indian Energy Congress brings about. And it also brings around all the energy partners in one go.
This latest edition of the Congress was significant as it was the first instance where ministries of power, coal, new and renewable energy, petroleum and natural gas, external affairs and the Department of Atomic Energy all came together on one platform. The discussions were led by over 50 eminent speakers including ministers, secretaries, industry captains, leading consultants and other key thought leaders. The event was also attended by over 400 delegates from across the sector.
The deliberations in such conferences by experienced leaders of the industry and government also give an opportunity for the policy makers to orient their policies in accordance with their thoughts and also to include the suggestions and ideas of different stakeholders being experienced by them while working in this sector.
Securing India's energy future is critical to sustaining a GDP growth of above 8%, as well as making it inclusive and environmentally sustainable. This thought was echoed in the addresses of government representatives and senior bureaucrats who sought to highlight key topics in the inaugural session, from the importance of moving towards clean energy to drawing up a roadmap to help achieve the same.
Energy sufficiency and energy affordability, these are the two primary components of a developing economy, of a good economy. मित्रों, सरकारें बनती हैं जनता की सेवा के लिए, सरकारें बनती हैं जनता के पास व्यवस्था पहुंचाने के लिए, लेकिन सरकारें ये व्यवस्था और सेवा कैसे कर पाएं, इसकी मार्गदर्शन करने वाला समूह यहाँ बैठा है। प्रधानमंत्री जी की इस विजन को, इस दृष्टि को साकार करने के लिए, जिसमें मेक इन इंडिया जैसे महत्वाकांक्षी योजना है, जिसकी पूर्व शर्त, पहला शर्त एनर्जी सफिशिएंसी है। मित्रों, ऐसे इस 2 दिवसीय अधिवेशन, 2 दिवसीय इस विश्व ऊर्जा समूह की इस चिंतन ऐसे बने, ये एक ऐसे रास्ता निकालें जो आने वाले 3-4 साल में एक पारदर्शी प्रक्रिया में उसकी पर्यावरण के बारे में, उसकी जमीन अधिग्रहण के बारे में, उसकी टेक्नोलॉजी के बारे में आम जनता की विश्वास रहे, विश्व स्तर की टेक्नोलॉजी आए, इन्वेस्टर फ्रेंडली हो। ये सारे प्रक्रिया इस 2 दिवसीय अधिवेशन में आप लोग देश के सामने लेके आओगे, एक पथ प्रदर्शक के नाते, एक मार्गदर्शक के नाते। इस बढ़ती हुई अर्थनीति को विश्व की प्रमुख देश बनने का, विश्व के नेता बनने की मैं अपेक्षा रखता हूं। आप इस प्रक्रिया में सरकार की भागीदारी बने और इस पहल सरकार को भी मदद करे। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद।
That energy and climate change got intricately linked, and as we see today, the two are inseparable. If there is anything which is affecting climate change the most, it is energy, clean energy, as we say. I think this will have to remain a focus area in the years to come, not only in other countries, but very much in India also. In India also, while the coal will remain the mainstay for some years to come, but I think today we are at a point where that turn is going to take place when the rate of growth of coal generation will come down and it will be taken over by renewable energy. In the next decade, I think the next decade belongs to renewable energy, even in a country like India. Now, there are still countries in the world, the African countries, for example, where the access to energy is very low. And as a global community, we need to see how we can, in the shortest possible time frame, make that energy available to every human being on earth.
The session on integrated energy planning focused on the idea of a unified planning body that could coordinate in an effective way the confluence of multiple ministries to achieve integration in energy governance. India's integrated energy policy has not been updated since 2006. Part of the reason for this has been the fact that different ministries like petroleum, coal, power, water resources, atomic energy, and new and renewable energy formulate policies for individual sectors, affecting the energy demand. Speakers elucidated on the urgent need to rethink areas of policy, commerce, and R&D, to look at energy not as a development challenge, but the development challenge. This will ensure that India's growing economy has continued access to reliable and cost-effective sources of energy.
So integration is a very important thing, whether it's a liquid fuel or whether it's a fuel coming from needed for power generation, needed for industrial use, or a fuel which is, or a source which will be needed to actually make the houses have a remove darkness. Many of these has to be integrated with each other. The ministries may be different, but the approach has to be common. There has to be a common strategy. And to make all this happen, this is something we really need to put many different sectors together. So financing cannot be independent, technology cannot be independent, consumers cannot be independent. So I think we really need to integrate an approach towards the whole thing. And I think that would really help us to get over these challenges, not only in India, but we could do it globally in a proper manner. Thank you very much.
Promoting exploration and production of hydrocarbon fuels was the theme of the next session. The panelists engaged in an insightful debate on the challenges being faced by the oil and gas sector. Saurabh Chandra, Secretary, Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas, shared the key takeaway of the session.
A number of questions that were raised actually pertained to the downstream sector, how retailing is affecting the consumer, and regarding the upstream sector, there are issues. How do we increase exploration activities? How do we decrease the time period between exploration and development and then going into production? Better surveys. How do we survey the entire sedimentary basin of the country? And also what kind of models which need to be put in place for incentivizing exploration. CMD Indian Oil talked about the reforms which are required in the midstream and downstream sectors. And there was a talk about the gas grid. How do you get gas on gas competition in the country? And how it's a clean source of energy, and how it then an integrated view on the entire sector contributing to the smart cities, to the energy highways, to the industrial corridors which are coming all over the country.
Coming up, important issues from Day 2 of the Indian Energy Congress. Stay tuned to ET Now.
Quality, reliable power supply available 24/7. This government is committed to providing 24/7 power by 2019. This has got two dimensions. One is to connect the unconnected, and the second one is to provide 24/7 quality power supply to all those who are connected. On the first one, where it is for connecting the unconnected, the numbers are there are about 5.6 crore households in our country which are presently not even connected. For connecting those, we have launched two schemes. One is the Deen Dayal Upadhyay Gram Jyoti Yojana. The other is Integrated Power Development Scheme, which will take care of connecting the unconnected. Over and above this, there are schemes in the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy, which also provide off-grid solutions for those who are far off from the grid and therefore for whom it is not cost effective to connect them to the grid. This will take care of the connectivity part. After connecting them, then the issue is for providing continuous power supply, reliable power supply. And one of the things which we are doing for that is to separate the agricultural feeder from the non-agricultural feeder in rural areas. What this will do is, it will shift the agricultural load to night, and thereby it will make it possible to supply power to the non-agricultural rural consumers 24 hours. Not only that, under the same two schemes, we are also taking up upgradation of the distribution network both in rural and in urban areas. And our target is, we will, with the cooperation of the state governments and the DISCOMs which function under the state governments, we will complete the schemes within 2 years from the date of sanction. In any case, within the next 5 years, we will achieve both the issue of connecting the unconnected as well as providing sufficient power. Luckily, we have enough generation capacity on hand. We have already an installed capacity of about 2.5 lakh megawatt in our country. So, availability of power on the supply side is not an issue. It is essentially a distribution issue, and we are handling it in this manner. The last thing which I would like to add here is that we are going to amend the Electricity Act, where we will be separating carriage from content. Or in other words, we will be unbundling the last mile retail distribution. This will provide huge choice, huge option to the consumers. Today they are bound to get it only from one DISCOM. Once this is brought into place, then of course they will have a choice. They can approach multiple suppliers.
Industry today is the largest user of energy in the country and will continue to be so. Now, this presents us with two challenges. The first challenge is that today we have industry that is amongst the most energy efficient in the world. We also have industry which uses several times as much energy to produce a ton of cement or steel as the best. To address this issue of bandwidth, of wide bandwidth of energy efficiency, we have introduced the Perform, Achieve and Trade program, in which those who are efficient have to become more efficient, but the target is smaller, and those who are inefficient, they have to become more efficient, but the target is larger. We will now go into a second phase of this Perform, Achieve and Trade, where more companies will be covered and the targets will also be tighter. This is the short-term problem. The longer-term issue is that as industrialization increases, so that we get the amount of steel we need, the cement we need, the chemicals that we need, it means that, for example, the steel industry would become something like 15 times what it is today. It will also use more energy. This makes it important that the steel, cement, pulp and paper sectors, the new plants that are made are more efficient than the ones that were put today. The ones that are put up day after tomorrow are more efficient than the ones that were put up tomorrow. This also presents problems, because as we tighten the energy efficiency regulations, there is a challenge of whether we produce products here or whether we import them. The second challenge is how do we get the technologies that address issues like the quality of our raw materials, the products mix that we need. We need to develop the technology supply chain for high energy efficiency technologies. And the third issue is that in these kinds of sectors, how do we address the climate change imperative of reducing carbon dioxide emissions? So the key here is, on the one side, electricity, possibly with renewables you can go to lower carbon dioxide, but we still need to see what are the kinds of ways in which we can move away from coal and oil towards renewable forms in the manufacture of these industrial products.
See, energy efficiency as a dimension which touches all the three aspects of the energy trilemma, which is energy security, energy equity and the environmental sustainability. It has an impact on all the three parameters, so it is very, very important. Now, I talk about the power generation portion, the efficiency of that. Now, India has installed base of coal. Coal is going to remain a mainstay of fuel. 60% of the power installed is power generation capacity installed is coal, and the power 75% of the power is produced out of that. So therefore, it is important to look at the efficiency of this particular segment. So we need various technologies to be used here. Unfortunately, in India we have all the sets which are very old sets, 30-40-year-old sets, and also the rating of the sets has been low. With that, the average efficiency has been lesser than the global averages. So there is a lot of room for improvement of these efficiencies. In fact, if you look at the energy efficiency as a subject, if you put 100 kilocalories primary energy into the power generation process, ultimately only you get 20 kilocalories at the end of the day to the consumer. So any improvement in between this process, that much power is that much fuel is added to the the energy production. So therefore, it is important for us to look at the technologies which are used in power generation process. Now, we have been using the subcritical technologies. We are now going with the supercritical technologies, and we are moving towards now advanced ultra supercritical technologies, where the efficiencies are going to go from 36%, 40%, and then to 46%. And this is going to really affect all the three dimensions of the energy energy issues like energy security, as I mentioned. That much more coal will be available for production of more power. That much environmental sustainability, that means the carbon emissions will be that much less, and the costs of production of that energy will be that much less again, so impacting the energy equity angle. So therefore, the power generation portion technologies are important in using a better technology for better efficient process.
Regulatory independence is really important to help countries deliver on their goals of energy policy, and for most countries they are energy security, affordability and access, and environmental sustainability. And in the work that the World Energy Council has been doing, we find that the performance on those goals depends crucially on the policies and on the quality of implementation of the policies through regulatory decisions. So the regulatory decisions must be independent, but they must be clear and they must be clearly grounded in the goals. So in India, where you have a huge opportunity now to create a regulatory framework that is more integrated across the different energy sectors, it's an opportunity that could help create the framework for investment by business, to give more access to electricity, to improve the climate for Indian industry, and to help economic growth and prosperity.
The two-day Congress ended with a session dedicated to the importance of financing in the energy sector. Stakeholders expressed the need for long-term financing options for power projects so as to boost the power infrastructure in the country.
What we were basically looking at is financing for this very important sector, energy sector and the power sector in particular. And given the challenges we have, where the power sector today has a number of non-performing assets, particularly with the public sector banks, where is this finance going to come from? And we have huge targets in the country for the renewable energy sector. And the renewable sector also falls into the same caps or limits for the power sector across the banks. So some of the suggestions coming up were, is there a way of carving out renewables out of the power sector as a whole, maybe even looking at some kind of priority sector lending there. Instruments such as credit enhancement, which allow the renewable sector to borrow and allow, in fact, good power projects also to borrow, as the problem with the discoms remains, even while the government and the sector looks at sorting out the discoms, which is a challenge of the sector as a whole. And then there is a big need to look at capital market financing for the sector, capital market financing which will provide long tenured debt which goes beyond 5 to 7 years. And this becomes possible really only in the capital markets. We have seen companies like Reliance borrow 30-year loans in offshore markets. We need to also develop an onshore bond market which give these long tenured loans. And this can only happen when the insurance sector and the pension funds in our country begin to invest in these long tenured corporate bonds. So we need to bring into our corporate bond market a structure which enables financing for infrastructure, and the power sector will clearly benefit from that. There are innovative instruments like green bonds which are now being looked at offshore. It's a very young market. It was $34 billion offshore last year. It was $10 billion the year before that. So it's growing in huge leaps. It's an area which Indian organizations, Indian renewable companies could certainly access in the offshore market. But given that there are hedging costs and risks therein, one of the things that we are looking at is to actually have a green bond market in India itself. So lots of ideas, but the challenges are clearly huge and need resolution.
The Congress was a resounding success in terms of not only participation, but also in providing a platform for a wide coverage of issues and robust discussions by key stakeholders from the sector. The Congress provided an impetus to the cause of integrated energy planning and coordinated action in India.
Such conferences give an opportunity to different stakeholders in the power sector to give their views for the roadmap of the power sector to make it financially viable, and how to make our state power utilities viable so that all the developers and the investors can come back to the sector again and make this sector viable.